Hi, I'm Randy Warren.
And I'm Jacqueline Bunn, and welcome to Legally Speaking. This show is being brought to you by the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, also known as GABWA. GABWA is a voluntary bar association that works to advocate for women and children and seeks to empower our community. This season on Legally Speaking, we're going to present shows that we feel will be very relevant to our membership. We're working on shows that will help attorney development. And we know that people go to law school for a number of different reasons, but not everybody wants to have a traditional practice of law. And so today we're going to bring some guests who can talk to following a different path.
Our guests today decided to step outside the box. They did not do the law firm environment, in-house counsel role, or corporate environment. They are happy, successful, and they do not regret their choices. Our first guest today is Daraka Satcher. He is the Director of Government Affairs for Taylor English Duma LLP's decision, a 1996 Morehouse College graduate and a 1999 Emory Law graduate.
Our other guest is Faith Hudson. She is a small business owner. She owns Lash Life, and she's the creator of Strong Academy's Academic Enrichment Company. She's a 2010 Spelman graduate and a 2015 Mercer Law graduate.
Thank you, Daraka and Faye, for joining us.
Thank you.
Daraka, why did you decide not to enter the traditional route of the legal field?
Well, the real story is that it was really never my intention to do so. I was a political science major at Morehouse. And so the traditional path for political science majors that want to get an additional degree is to go to law school, which is what I did. However, though, my focus was really more on the political science side. So I knew that I wanted to work in DC and work on Capitol Hill and things of that nature. So I kind of kept that dream throughout the trials and tribulations of law school and came out on the other side and decided to stick with it. I was tempted certainly during my time in law school to practice, but I went through with my original goal.
Okay. What about you, Faith?
Well, for me, I've always been an entrepreneur. Law school was more of a dream and vision for my parents, and I'm glad that I went, but I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always started things. I had several small businesses, little ventures in college, little online businesses and different things. So it's who I've always been. And I don't regret a minute going to law school because it's just everything in what I'm doing now. But it's just always been who I am.
Okay. Now you went to Capitol Hill.
Correct.
And what kind of work did that law degree lend itself to?
So I think it's a misperception amongst a lot of folks that, everybody on Capitol Hill have law degrees. That's actually not the case at all. As a matter of fact, I think most folks who work on Capitol Hill do not have law degrees. And so what my law degree was able to give me a kind of a leg up on some of the other folks who work there, which is the most important part is kind of understanding how to think and analyze and applying that to the development of laws, policy making. So at the end of the day, what folks are doing on Capitol Hill, they are actually creating the laws which are applied later on, state, local, and federal levels. So to be able to bring that understanding to the development of these laws kind of at the original level gave, my understanding from law school gave me a leg up on doing what I was doing there as opposed to other folks.
Now what job did you end up with?
Oh, I did a lot of things. I started out, on a pretty junior level as a policy advisor. So I was a policy advisor, I was a legislative director, and I worked my way up to chief of staff for a member of Congress from Georgia, Hank Johnson, actually. So, and that encompassed a lot of things, but that's a longer story we can talk about later.
Okay. And what path did you end up taking?
Well, I was in Teach for America right before law school, graduated law school. I did some more legal work, and I went back overseas. I lived in China. I was an assistant principal there. And so after...
Wow.
Yeah, so I've just always kind of taken those leaps to charter my own path. Completing law school, having done law review, having done the internships with the major law firms, kind of decided I just wasn't on fire with it, right? I love to read, I love to research, but that in that way, it wasn't what was best for me. So jumped back into education, went overseas, lived in China for some time, came back home, and that's when I started Strong Academy, my first business, and have been starting my own ventures ever since then.
And Daraka, how would you advise to those who want to get in governmental affairs?
So it's interesting because, when we're talking about kind of things that are untraditional, it's not necessary for someone in government affairs to have a law degree, not at all. Mm-hmm. So for those who are interested in governmental affairs, probably the smartest path to follow is to spend time working in state capitol and city hall, on Capitol Hill, or with the presidential administration, to really kind of understand how government works. Because at the end of the day, you're advising your clients' organizations on how the government works and how to apply that to their everyday businesses. If you don't understand that from the inside out, you're not going to be very effective. So law school's not really, it's helpful. I mean, it gave me a leg up, but it's not really necessary for it. Really, what's necessary is understanding how government works, generally speaking. You can only do that from the inside.
Mm-hmm. And Daraka, you've touched on working for a presidential administration. So you worked for the former President Obama's administration.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, after I left the Hill, my timing was pretty good because I left to join the administration. I got an opportunity to work for, nothing too fancy. I wasn't in the White House or anything like that, but I was at the U.S. Department of Commerce handling legislative affairs there. And so, it basically, in a sense, it was doing governmental affairs for the Commerce Department. So that was obviously a great experience, and it was a unique experience being able to work for, the first African-American president, for sure. So I was, in D.C. it's all about timing. And so I was lucky enough to have been there at the right time to take advantage of that particular opportunity. And, going back to our original point, the training that I received in law school, although not necessary for what I was doing, definitely helped me in immense ways throughout my time at the Commerce Department and in the administration.
Well, and Faith, I know our members are kind of like bottom line ladies. You have pursued a business, and I guess one question is, I'm sure on a lot of members' minds would be, how did you finance this dream? Because people come out of law school, sometimes they have a boatload of debt. How do you go from dealing with that to creating your own business?
Well, for me, it's really just been a bootstrapping effort. Honestly, it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of ingenuity, a lot of critical thinking, analyzing, problem solving that I've learned in law school as it relates to the money, right? So thinking critically, because when you start a business, it never goes the way that you thought it was going to go. Like, you were supposed to make all this money and you made nothing. So, and just saying like, okay, over this next 10 to 15 days, what do we need to make? And just making short-term projections. And I would say like that's been the model for me in financing my ventures.
Do you have, how many people do you have working for you?
Between the two businesses, about 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how challenging is that? Because I know from my perspective, having been a supervisor, that supervising people can really be a challenge.
Yeah, it's just like the staff, it's like they kill you and they save you all in the same breath, right? And it's just like, oh my goodness. But for me, I've just learned like the importance of the people that are with me and like holding on to them as long as I can, as long as it's a good fit culturally, because you put so much time into people as it relates to like training, going back to the finances. So if when a person walks out of the door, that's a lot of money that leaves. And so, and learning what makes them tick. Like, everybody's not motivated by money. Some people want to move up and different things like that. So just understanding them.
Now, did you take any specific classes to prepare you for that transition?
The transition to entrepreneurship? Yeah, no. I just kind of jumped out there. I came home from China and I just decided like I'm not going to work for anybody else again, and that was really it.
Okay, a very bold move.
It was, yeah. Luckily, it worked out.
And Daraka, going back to your time at Capitol Hill. How did your law degree shape you developing strong ties with policymakers, politicians, and understanding what your clients' needs are?
Yeah. So even though, like I said, most folks who work on Capitol Hill don't necessarily have law degrees. I think most members of Congress probably do. And so, that definitely helped in terms of relating to them and the folks I work for and kind of how they speak and how they think. So once again, it did to be able to understand how to think and how to analyze as a lawyer, it did give me a leg up, not only in terms of the work I did, but just in kind of relating to the people that I worked with and for. So it was a direct connection there, and so that was a primary benefit.
I guess in following up with that, how would you say you feel now that you found your passion? And I guess this is a twofold question for both of you guys, because a lot of people are struggling with finding their passion and think that you have to go the traditional route. So how did you find your passion?
So it kind of came naturally to me, and what I'll say is this, is that it's kind of, once you find it, that does not mean that's the end of the story, right? Because this is what I'm doing now in government affairs, even though it's related to what I was doing in DC, is really a second phase of my professional development. So when I first came out of law school and went to work on the Hill, that was my passion then. And I felt like I fulfilled it, which made me comfortable enough to take the risk leaving DC and coming and doing what I'm doing now. By far, most of the folks who did what I did stay in DC because they have better currency there professionally. So it was a risk for me to kind of step out. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur myself, actually, and to come down to Atlanta and do what I'm doing. So I would say that you can let it come to you naturally, but also understand that as you grow professionally, there can be different things you become passionate about and not be scared to pursue them. I think a lot of folks get stuck into kind of one thing and limit themselves.
And they're not willing to evolve.
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah. So I feel like I did. Some people may disagree. But.
Faith, what about you?
Well, similar to what I stated earlier, and as it relates to, I've always been an entrepreneur, but I think going to law school actually kind of harnessed me a little bit, because I'm like, I'll jump out there, I'll start something new. But having a law degree and having been to law school and reading all these cases, how everything always goes wrong, stepping into a business, I'm always thinking like, okay, what can go wrong? Like, how many insurance policies can I possibly have? And then can I have more? And also looking at everything that I say to an employee or things that they're saying to each other, signing for everything, and just preemptive measures as opposed to putting fires out. So this has always been my passion, but going to law school has helped me kind of fine-tune my passion.
So did you create some kind of business plan?
I've created lots of business plans, but for what I'm doing now, no. If we're just going to be honest, just because like I know like what that business plan looks like because I've had so many different ventures, and so I may have like a 2 to 3 page game plan of what I'm doing and what's going on, if that makes sense. I know that's not like
Okay,
idea.
so talk to me, because I want to understand a little bit about exactly what your businesses are.
Okay, yes. So Strong Academy, we're an academic enrichment company. So we started off as a summer camp.
Okay.
We branched out into after-school programs with different schools and contracts with local schools based on my relationships when I was an educator. And so we branched out into that. So we had after-school, summers, and then we have private tutoring.
And the goal of those programs would be what? To enhance the students' academic performance, or?
Yeah, so we're academic enrichment as it relates to teaching above grade level material over the summer, so that if I'm going into 3rd grade, I'm already learning 3rd grade division and multiplication standards before I start. So I'm already have a leg up on my peers. We also teach Mandarin Chinese, so we're also making sure that our students are globally competitive. We're based in Southwest Atlanta, and so our kids don't have that opportunity, and they shouldn't have a Woodward or a Westminster price tag to be able to have that opportunity. So throughout the summer, throughout the school year, we're teaching Mandarin Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah.
And outside of that, Faith, you're also a Lash Life
Yes.
owner in Buckhead. So let's talk about those fabulous lashes.
Right, yeah, all my law school classmates are like, I think she has like a lash business or something now. So yeah, I just saw an opportunity in the market. Like lash extensions have been around for years, but for entertainers, more socioeconomic stability communities. And so the business model that I have, we've kind of lowered that price point and made it more affordable for the everyday woman, especially with the social media culture. We're all taking selfies. We're always on camera now. And so that lash helps the woman. He's like, yeah, that makes sense. Helps
I get
her
it.
look to just kind of like really pop. And so, so a Lash Life, we're in Buckhead. We do lashes, brows, makeup.
And do you have just one location? Are you planning
Yes.
on, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to understand too is this. Is this something you created from the ground up, or is this like a franchise?
No, this is from the ground up. We've bootstrapped it, financed it independently. It could potentially be a franchise.
Okay.
We will open up another location in Midtown fall of 2019, but it is our business that we've started from scratch.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
We have to make an
Very
appointment.
I know.
And I also want to talk about the courage to step outside of the box. You know, we are, pretty much trained to like, hey, we're going to the law firm environment. But what about that courage for those who are lacking that courage and that to go out there and do something that's different? What would you say, Daraka, about finding that courage?
So I think you have to, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before. You have to kind of evaluate yourself, and I would kind of push back a little bit, saying that sometimes stepping out is defined as being courageous. Sometimes it may not be, right? I mean, sometimes it may be courageous to kind of stay where you are and excel in the place that you are. So the courageous piece, I mean, to your point, I think applies to those who have that drive, who are meant for that, whatever they need to do, and can have the courage to actually step out and do it. But that doesn't apply to everyone. I mean, there's a lot of great work that needs to be done where you are and to excel there. So but to answer your question though, I think it's just important to take a look at who you are, what you want to do, to your earlier point, what your passion is, and to determine that is exactly what it is based on what you're telling yourself. In the social media environment, we hear a lot from other folks telling us what we need to do, right? And so you need to really kind of take a step back and determine what you need to do for yourself. And if you determine that stepping out and doing something different like we are doing is your passion, then it'll take that courage to do so. Otherwise, it may be courageous to kind of stay where you are and excel where you are, right?
Yeah.
Faith, anything to add?
Well, I think Daraka pretty much covered it. As it relates to like entrepreneurship or small business ownership, I'm not exactly sure that it's for everyone, or that like similar to an athlete, it's like who you are and what you do. So because for me, like I've always had little ventures, and when I'm like with a lot of other entrepreneurs, they had lemonade stands or different things that they've always done.
Even from young kids.
Right, exactly. So like jumping up at 35 and striking out may not always have been. And so there's definitely like a discussion around that as well. And so I would say just being incredibly self-aware, right? Like before you jump out, like, am I a great number 2 at this company? And like, is that really my potential? Am I living up to my potential there? Or having that self-awareness to determine like, I am an entrepreneur and that's who I've always been.
The other piece I would ask about is how your families responded to your choices.
So,
I mean, I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
I went to law school, I got a law degree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah.
assuming that you are going to,
Yeah.
to be a lawyer. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
how do you manage those expectations?
Yeah, I think that, that was certainly
Yeah.
the assumption on
Yeah.
on mine, and understandably so. I mean, and it's also a cultural thing, right? I have a friend who kind of went the traditional route with his profession, and his family. He's African American. His family was great with that. I think he's a physician. And then he stepped out and became an entrepreneur, and he was actually married to someone of another culture, a Jewish woman. And when he stepped out, his family said, "What are you doing? You're crazy. That's a good job you have." And then he went to his father-in-law and he said, "What took you so long? Here's a loan to build your business," right? So within our culture, to do something a little different, even though what I was doing was not drastically different, it was kind of like, well, why aren't you, kind of utilizing that JD to do the classic thing? And I get that, because we come from a different place, and when you have these opportunities, it's kind of like take them as they are. But I think it's important to kind of redefine success, and we're doing that by what we're doing, and people have a different view of kind of how you can apply this degree. So.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, my family, they were tired of me complaining about working at a law firm and just like, I'm in pain. I just cannot do another day.
Another billable hour.
I'm not going to make it. So everybody's been supportive. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for sharing all of your knowledge, your advice. We have certainly enjoyed our guests today. We would like to say there are so many routes that you can take. Law firm, in-house counsel, corporate, just sometimes step outside the box, but reevaluate to see if that's really for you. Whatever career path, remember, finding your passion leads to happiness. Thank you again, Faith and Daraka, for joining us.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us on this segment of Legally Speaking.